He gave his wife a gift, a special cream he promised would heal her sickness. But this was no medicine. It was a lie. It was a poison, carefully designed not to kill, but to destroy. Within hours, her face began to decay, her beauty twisting into a grotesque mask of horror as her hair fell out in bloody clumps. But why? Because he had a plan to start a new life with a richer, more beautiful woman. He was a samurai, and he felt he deserved a better life. But he made one fatal mistake. He never imagined her rage would be strong enough to destroy him, even after her death. This isn't just a story. It's a legend burned into the soul of Japan. A tale of a love so wronged that it created the nation's most vengeful ghost. This is referred to as Yotsuya Kaidan, Yotsuya Ghost Story. Along with Okiku of the Well, it is also called one of the Nihon Sandai Kaiden, Japan's 3 great ghost stories. Our story starts in the city of Edo, what we now call Tokyo, back in the sweltering heat of the early 19th century. As I've explained in more depth in Okiku's story, this was a time of rigid social rules, where honor was everything, and shame was a fate worse than death. In this place and time lived a man named Tamiya Aimon. Aimon was a man adrift. He was once a samurai, but now he was a ronin, a masterless warrior. His clan had fallen, and with it, his status, his purpose, and most importantly, his money. He had the pride of a warrior, but the pockets of a peasant. A dangerous combination that was eating him alive. But Aimon had one treasure in his life, his wife Oiwa. She was a woman of quiet beauty and fierce loyalty, and her devotion to Aimon was absolute. She saw past the disgraced ronin and loved the man she believed he could be. Their love was so strong they had married in secret, against the wishes of her father, Yotsuya Samon. Samon saw Iemon for what he was, a failure who was dragging his daughter down into a life of poverty and despair. For Oiwa, Aimon was her whole world. But for Aimon, Oiwa was becoming an anchor holding him down. They lived in a humble home in the Yotsuya district, a far cry from the life a samurai's wife was supposed to lead. Stripped of his rank, Aimon was forced to make cheap paper umbrellas just to get by. And the shame of it all twisted his love for Oiwa into something ugly. He started to resent her. He no longer saw his devoted partner. He saw a living symbol of his own failure. And this love story, which began in defiance, was slowly curdling into a tragedy, setting the stage for a betrayal so deep it would echo for centuries. The tension between Aimon and his father-in-law was bound to explode. One evening, on a dark road in Yotsuya, the two men came face to face. Samon didn't hold back. He saw the poverty clinging to his daughter and blamed the man in front of him. "You are no samurai," he sneered, demanding that Aimon divorce Oiwa and free her from his pathetic life. For Aimon, this was the final insult. This was an attack on his last shred of samurai pride. The resentment that had been poisoning his heart finally boiled over into a murderous rage. He snapped. He pulled a hidden blade, and the argument was over. Aimon killed his father-in-law, on that lonely road, silencing the voice of his shame. In that one violent act, he had cut Oiwa off from her last family connection, orphaning her in an already cruel world. He went home, his hands clean but his soul stained forever. He looked into Oiwa's trusting eyes and spun a masterful lie. A phantom killer, a nameless robber, had struck her father down. He cried with her, he held her, and then he swore a solemn vow he would find his killer and avenge Yotsuya Samon. It was a performance of stunning cruelty. He promised to hunt down the very man he saw in the mirror. Completely trusting him, the grieving Oiwa leaned on her husband. She, along with Aimon, moved into a smaller home, seeking safety from a tragedy that was secretly living under their own roof. Now pregnant with Aimon's child, Oiwa's devotion never wavered. She took on work to support the man she loved and the baby she was carrying, while she worked herself to the bone. Aimon wasn't hunting for a killer. He was hunting for an opportunity. The lie he told had become his new identity, a mask of a righteous man seeking justice, while inside him, guilt and ambition were at war. He was playing a part, and he was getting dangerously good at it. Poverty was a constant cold companion, and for Aimon, the chill had settled deep in his bones. His resentment for Oiwa was growing by the day. Her pregnancy wasn't a joy. It was just another burden. After the birth of their child, she fell ill. She had been diminished by childbirth and hardship. Oiwa was still as beautiful as ever, but his blood had completely curdled into cold disgust. It was then that opportunity dressed in silk and gold came calling. Not far from their miserable shack lived a wealthy merchant named Ito Kihei. The difference between their lives was stark, a world of splendor that Aimon desperately craved. The key to this world was the merchant's daughter, Ome. She was young, beautiful, and had a huge crush on the brooding down on his luck samurai. He wanted him, and the powerful father was the type of man to get his daughter whatever she wanted. They saw Aimon's poverty not as a problem, but as leverage. A deal was offered. A golden path was laid out for Aimon. If he left Oiwa, he could marry Ome. He would be adopted into their rich family, have status, power, and wealth beyond his wildest dreams. All he had to do is get rid of one inconvenient wife. But there was a problem. In Edo period Japan, you couldn't just abandon your wife without a cause. So they hatched a scheme, a cruel, insidious plot. Ome was obsessed, but she was also jealous of Oiwa's famous beauty. So the plan wasn't just to remove Oiwa, but destroy the very thing Ome envied. Once the deed was done, nobody would blame Aimon for leaving a horrendous, disfigured wife. They would give her a gift, a special cream sent with fake concern for her sickness. They would say it was to restore her health, but the cream was a lie. It was laced with a potent toxin, a poison designed not for a quick death, but for a slow, horrifying disfigurement. When Aimon heard the plan, he didn't hesitate. The glare of gold extinguished the last flicker of his conscience. He saw his bright, prosperous future. Oiwa, The woman who had sacrificed everything for him was now just a problem to be solved. He agreed. The trap was set. The gift arrived. A small pot of cream presented with a mask of kindness. To the trusting Oiwa, it was a compassionate gesture from their powerful new neighbors. She accepted it gracefully. That evening, before going to sleep, she sat on her bed and applied the cream to her face. At first, nothing happened, but soon, a strange burning itch began, an itch she couldn't scratch. Then came the pain, a searing, agonizing pain that felt as if her face had been lit on fire. She could feel the boils forming on her skin and rupturing as she tried to find something to stop the torment. The poison was melting her features into a grotesque mask of agony, and her left eye started to droop, twisting her face into a permanent, horrifying grimace. But the poison wasn't finished. It turned on her lustrous black hair. The irritation reached her scalp, and when she clawed at it, thick, bloody clumps came away in her hands, leaving her partially bald and bleeding profusely. This was the scene Aimon returned to. He pretended to be shocked, but his eyes held a glint of triumph. His plan was working. Now he might have an excuse to leave her. Who could expect a man to stay with such a creature? But this wasn't enough. He had to seal the deal. He decided he needed to fabricate proof of infidelity. So he sought out a reluctant accomplice, a friend of his named Takuetsu, and ordered him to go to their home and force himself on the disfigured Oiwa, so that Aimon could arrive later, discover them, and claim grounds for divorce. But when Takuetsu entered the room, he froze. He saw not a monster, but a woman in unimaginable agony. He couldn't do it. Instead, out of some twisted pity, he did something worse. He held a hand mirror to Oiwa's ruined face. "Look," he urged her. "Look what you've become." For the first time, Oiwa saw the full, undiluted horror of her reflection. And in that moment, she understood everything. The gift, the Ito family, Aimon's coldness, the lie was stripped away. And the truth was more hideous than any poison. A wave of grief, rage, and despair so powerful it could shatter the barrier between worlds washed over her. The woman in the mirror was gone. Something else, something terrifying, was taking her place. Her grief was absolute. The love she had given so freely had been repaid with monstrous cruelty. Her mind finally snapped, surrounded by the symbols of her destroyed life. She tried to grab Takuetsu's sword. A frantic struggle followed. In her desperation and confusion, she finally wrested the sword from him, only to stumble and slash her own throat. It was a gruesome, agonizing death, born from chaos and unbearable pain. But as the life drained out of her, her last breath was not a sigh. It was a whispered, venomous curse. A promise to the man who had done this to her.
Aimon.
Her final words echoed through the dark room. A vow that would outlive her body.
I will haunt you. You will never know peace.
Aimon discovered the scene, not with remorse, but with cold calculation. Oiwa was dead, and Takwetsu, shaken and horrified, knew far too much. With chilling efficiency, Aemon silenced him where he stood. Then, to complete his treachery, he nailed Oiwa's disfigured body and Takwetsu's bloodied corpse to opposite sides of a single wooden door, arranging them as adulterous lovers slain in disgrace. He cared less about convincing the world of his innocence than about destroying Oiwa's name. If the bodies were to be found, scandal and shame would cling to her memory, while the truth sank with them into dark water. He dragged the heavy door to the murky Onryo canal and threw it in. As it sank, Aemon watched, thinking all his problems would be gone with it. He was free. His path to the Ito fortune was clear. He walked away, ready to claim his prize, having no idea that you can't drown a curse. The water hadn't cleansed his sins. It had just given them a place to wait. With Oiwa's body barely cold, Aemon wasted no time. He quickly married his wealthy new bride, Ome. The wedding was a grand affair. Lanterns glowed, sake flowed, and it was the perfect picture of happiness. Aemon had made it. He had escaped his past and stepped into the future he craved. He raised a cup, toasting his new wife, his perfect crime. As the night wore on and Aemon was several drinks deep, he decided to retire for the evening, bringing his wife with him. The moment he had dreamed of was finally here. He could begin his new life with Ome at his side. She lay on her side, turning her back to her new husband, gazing at the beautiful view beyond the window. The lamps from the party flickering beneath the black sky full of stars. Everything she had hoped for was becoming a reality. Aemon lay beside her and reached out, touching her shoulder gently. As she slowly turned to face him, Ome was gone. In place of her perfect features, he saw the drooping eye, the scarred skin, and the grotesque, melted visage of his dead wife Oiwa. Panic seized him. This was impossible. She was dead. He reached for his sword, his only instinct to attack, and swung with all his might at the horrifying face before him. He heard a scream, but it wasn't a ghostly wail. It was real. The illusion shattered. The monstrous face of Oiwa vanished, and he saw what he had done. He hadn't struck a ghost. He had struck Ome, his new wife, her lifeblood staining the sheets. Hearing the scream, Ome's father, Itokihei, rushed in, but Aemon, lost in his terror, didn't see him. He saw the ghost of his murdered friend Takwetsu, come for revenge. He swung his sword again and again. The illusion faded to reveal a bloody reality. He had cut down Kihei. In just a few moments, his new life had turned into a bloodbath. He stood in the bridal chamber, surrounded by the bodies of the people who were supposed to make him rich. His sword dripping with their blood. Oiwa's curse had arrived, turning his triumph into a slaughter. He did the only thing he could and fled into the night, but he would soon learn there was nowhere to run. Oiwa's ghost would follow him forever. Aemon ran, fleeing to the remote mountains, hoping isolation would save him, but he was wrong. Oiwa's vengeance wasn't a simple haunting. It was a psychological siege. She didn't have to chase him. She was already inside his head. The onryo became a part of his reality, patiently and relentlessly eroding his sanity. Everything he saw became a vessel for her curse. He tried to go fishing to clear his head, but as he looked into the water, he didn't see a fish. He saw the wooden shutter from his old house floating in the surface. Nailed to one side was the decaying corpse of Takuetsu. Then, with the water rocking beneath it, the plank slowly turned, revealing the hideously disfigured body of his wife Oiwa. Everywhere he turned, she was there. He would light a papered lantern, only for the paper to stretch and morph into her scarred face, her one good eye glaring at him before the lantern burst into flames. He would see his reflection, and her face would stare back. The faces of strangers on the street would warp into hers. Oiwa's spirit wasn't just haunting him. It was systematically dismantling his mind, ensuring that his life was a constant waking nightmare. Aimon's torment finally ended when he was found and killed by Yomoshishi, Oiwa's brother-in-law, who brought both justice for the crimes and a merciful end to the madness. Aimon, the man who killed for ambition, died in terror, a footnote to the legend he created. Oiwa became the classic onryo, a vengeful spirit wronged in life, returning to exact a terrible price. With her drooping eye, falling hair, and unyielding rage, she became an icon of Japanese horror, the prototype for the vengeful female ghost with long dark hair that would influence everything from 19th century art to modern horror films like The Ring and The Grudge. But the story of Oiwa didn't just stay on the stage. A curse is said to linger around the tale itself. For nearly 2 centuries, productions of Yotsuya Kaidan have been plagued by mysterious accidents, unexplained illnesses, and even deaths. The curse is taken so seriously that to this day, it's tradition for the cast and crew of any new adaptation to visit Oiwa's alleged grave in Tokyo, to pay their respects and ask her permission to tell the story. Oiwa's story endures not just because it's scary, but because it's a powerful and timeless cautionary tale. It's a story about the true cost of betrayal, the terrifying power of rage, and the idea that some loves, when wronged, don't just die. They wait. They curdle into something else, and they never, ever leave you. If you liked Oiwa's vengeance, don't forget to like and subscribe for more legendary tales of betrayal and horror. And tell me, should I stop asking weird questions at the end of these videos? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you reached this far, thank you for watching.